Everyone, welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet, the recorded version. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, Theresa Inacker. Theresa is with CNJFO. You've heard her on the weekly bullet before, and we wanted to give a little bit more time for her to tell her specific story, so we invited her to come on to the Daily Bullet. Theresa, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
So let's get started with, I guess, kind of a generic question. Why gun rights? What brought you into gun rights advocacy?
I've always loved the Constitution. So when I was in law school, I was a managing editor of the Constitutional Law Journal. I published a constitutional article, actually about commercial speech in New Jersey. So I've always been a lover of the Constitution, and the Second Amendment is really that hands-on, practical application of the Constitution in your daily life. So I've always had an affinity for it. Years back, I was attacked basically by a wounded deer in my backyard. It was trying to trample me, and I know that might sound crazy, but have you seen those videos of
yes,
attacking people? So it had been struck by a car somewhere and traveled through my yard and was trying to attack me, and I was trying to get away from it. And it was, I have to say, it really woke me up about how unpredictable nature can be. And I thought to myself, the only thing that would have helped me at that point, was a firearm. So I decided to go through the process. Hey, how hard could it be, right? So I applied for a New Jersey firearm purchase ID card. And as I went through that process, that's what really kicked me into motion about becoming an activist. It took a long time to process the paperwork. It was an arduous process. And they asked some very odd questions of my personal references. In New Jersey, you have to provide personal references, and the questions are really supposed to, stick with what's required in the statute. Am I an ineligible person for some reason? Whatever it may be, a criminal background, drugs, all those questions you expect. What my reference didn't expect was for them asking me what was my relationship like with my husband. And I found that just so sexist and off the wall, bizarre, really inappropriate and irrelevant. Because, hey, why else would a woman want a firearm if she never had one before? She must have a problem with her husband, right?
Wow.
So I have to tell you, that really jump-started me. And I realized that there were severe flaws with the system, the permitting system, and everything else just spiraled from there. The more you pay attention, the more you realize there's, exactly what's going on. So once I got dragged into that process, and of course I was approved, my friend chuckled and said there's not a problem there. But my reference was not expecting that question. Neither was I. I'm glad they told me that was asked of them. And that's how it all started for me.
Okay. So in the process, and I have to wonder if a lot of people, that their advocacy doesn't start when they have to jump through hoops that, really shall not be infringed, should cover, So and how long ago was that you just tried to purchase that first firearm?
I believe that was about 12 years ago for me. So when I was a youngster, my uncle, who was a hunter, really the only gun owner in my family, he had allowed us to shoot pellet guns, taught us safety. He had a very large, acreage in his backyard. Believe it or not, that exists in places in New Jersey. And so that was the only time I'd ever fired a gun. I had only done that when I was a young child, and then, never really, I guess, thought that it was something I wanted to do. I really wasn't checked into the process. And after having my experience with, scary part of unpredictable nature, and I do believe, humans are unpredictable, nature's unpredictable, you just never know. And then things escalated from there. So about 12 years ago, and of course, been part of that process several times. I've requested handgun permits, which is a separate process as well. You can't just have a New Jersey Farms purchase ID card. That's for long arms. And if you want to have a handgun, you have to go through a separate process, pay another fee, wait again. The longest I've waited for those was about 6.5 months. The statute says it should take 30 days. But in New Jersey, they get away with it. But we do have some challenges on deck for that.
Sure. So let's then that logically takes us to the next step. There are several Second Amendment advocacy organizations in New Jersey. You are affiliated with CNJFO. I want to ask, why do you work with them and not some of the other ones that are present in New Jersey?
It's a great question. New Jersey is, what is it? The necessity is the mother of invention. So, of course,
yes,
it's so infringed here. That's why you have a huge, groundswell of Second Amendment advocacy groups. So it's really a hotbed of groups and a hotbed of action. And people across the country probably don't know that. But, we are going to the mat every day, right? CNJFO the best organization. I worked with these people over the years with different organizations that had some, board changes, administrative type changes that, kind of had gone into some waves of being active and then not so active. CNJFO is the most active group. It's the most active group. It is properly formulated 501c3 organization with trustees, which now I'm a trustee. We have regular meetings, minutes, all of those sorts of things. It's very well organized. So I do like the administrative side of it, that there's, we basically are structured very well administratively, very active. But we're also very active when it comes to the outreach, educating youth, events, trying to keep the people involved when we can. Before COVID, we were doing, youth shoots and attending the diversity shoots, you name it. We have pheasant hunts, fundraisers, all sorts of things. They helped out with the DC project, helped raise so that the New Jersey ladies could have the Teal for 2A t-shirts from DC Project, which was very important. So it's a wonderful group. Volunteers are fantastic. I have myself been members of the other groups as well. And there's a sanctuary, a 2A sanctuary group in this state. And I worked with them to get a 2A sanctuary passed in my town. It was fantastic. So we don't always, we don't see each other necessarily as adversaries. Some groups are able to really work together when it's time for that. CNJFO has worked with ANJRPC, which is the state's NRA affiliate, on filing and carry litigation. Again, the state NRA affiliate is going to have a different flavor than the all volunteer trustee 501c3 group that we are. So it's just a matter of, who could use my talents and who was willing to use my, talents. I don't mean that in any kind of like conceited way, but
right.
Where can I apply what I know to help make this happen in the state? So CNJFO is the greatest fit for me for that reason. And so.
All right. Well, and one other thing, and we've talked about this before twice, but we're going to make it round 3, simply because I think it's such an important message. And that is, you are in New Jersey, which is, if not the worst, at least in a 3-way or 4-way tie for the worst situation for gun rights in the United States. And you're still hopeful. And I think that's important, that no matter your situation, you still remain hopeful and you still proceed as if things are going to get better. and you exemplify that, Theresa. Why do you think it's important to remain hopeful and stay positive in a situation? Just to put it bluntly, we've got an anti-gun president, a very anti-gun vice president, and a Congress. While the House would pass gun legislation if they could, they probably will, and the Senate is right on the edge. Why is it important for you to stay hopeful right now?
It's very important to stay hopeful, and we have every reason to be hopeful because there are people like me, countless people who are willing to step up and not be infringed. There is the idea that the power remains in the hands of the people. We have 3 branches of government. So one branch right now may not be working in our favor, but there could be other branches that could. So, at this point, we use a 3rd branch. We'll go to the judiciary. Our system is really brilliant in that we do have a way to petition our redresses and as long as you can stay organized and focused and hopeful and ask for the outcome that you want, you're headed in the right direction. So we filed, lawsuits galore here in New Jersey. The 10-round mag limit, people are worried about that because it's proposed right now. There's a House bill proposing a 10-round mag limit. We've already been at that. But aren't you guys happy that little old New Jersey has been fighting that in federal court since 2018? And the very next step would be applying to SCOTUS for relief. Why? So that you don't have to wait another 3 years or another 6 years to get something through the court system. So we were doing all of these things. It takes time. There's somebody else out there who's probably, also pushing cases through, depending on what their state situation is. Everyone could benefit from that if we actually get the SCOTUS to resolve it in our favor. So we continue to push cases up, unless and until they rule against us. We're not going to worry about that. We're going to keep going. So my governor doesn't have the last word. My legislature here in New Jersey and the governor can conspire to, infringe on Second Amendment rights like they have done from day one in office. And we will continue to file litigation to take down that. So we will always be there to challenge it. And as long as I challenge something and I don't really agree and consent to it, I'm a free person. I'm asserting myself. I'm making it abundantly clear we do not agree with what they're doing, and we're going to do something about it. We're going to file those cases. We're going to get the cases through the courts. That means people have to pony up, donations for litigation funds.
Right.
They have to, there are a lot of really good attorneys out there representing on these cases, very experienced. Think about it. We refer back to the Heller case. Can you imagine how he felt when DC was, knocking on his door and he stood up? It takes courage to stand up when you are not in power and in control. It takes great courage because, otherwise you wouldn't need courage if it was easy. So you have to keep the hope alive. You have to. This isn't just my right. This is a right of every generation after me. I'm not going to have them imagine in my mind. They're going to say, what were those people doing in 2020 and 2021? Why did they allow that to happen? We asked those questions in New Jersey. How did this happen over decades of infringement? But we don't want future generations to say that to us. It belongs to them also, not just to us. So we really don't have a choice to give up. Giving up's not in my nature anyway. Very, tenacious. And you have to find that somewhere and understand, if you envision in your mind that the fact that you're fighting back and you're filing the lawsuits and you're organizing the way that you need to be and using those 3 branches, whichever will be successful, then you're not going along with the program. You're making it very clear that you have hope, that it will be resolved in our favor, and we'll go from there. So
one point I'd like to make, we've only got a couple minutes left, but it's often said what happens in New York, what happens in New Jersey, what happens in California spreads when they're talking gun control. But what happens in New York, what happens in New Jersey, what happens in California instantly spreads throughout the nation when we're talking court cases, at least those that go to SCOTUS.
That's right. So what happens is there's an idea of about precedent, is called starry decisis. It's this idea that case law is binding, okay, once a big decision is made. It would be binding across the country. So right now you have, California has their circuit out there, Ninth Circuit, and all the states within those circuits operate under the decisions made there. Same as in New Jersey. We're in the Third Circuit. Pennsylvania, New Jersey, the U.S. Virgin Islands, right? They fall under the Third Circuit. New York has their own circuit. So what you're having right now, parts of the country are operating under different levels of infringement, different levels of being able to exercise civil rights. It's up to the Supreme Court to resolve those conflicts when there's a conflict. And when they do, it applies to everybody across the country. And it could take a generation. Basically, it could really have implications for a generation. Think about Dick Heller's cases going on, 12, 13 years now? So all that time, we've been filing cases. People have been filing cases in these deeply infringed states, but the court has been refusing. And that, that talk about a kick, a kick while you're down. That's pretty bad when you put all your, So, but you have to rally the troops and say, I have hope, and you're going to stick with me, and we're going to keep fighting this until it's resolved.
Very cool. Well, we're pretty much a little bit over time now, but before we go, I think it's really important if somebody's interested in CNJFO, and I want to stress this, you do not have to be a resident of New Jersey to join CNJFO. If, for example, you live in a great state like South Dakota and you want to help out where it's needed, join CNJFO. How do they do that?
That's awesome. So if you go to cnjfo.com/join-us, it'll take you right to the membership. So cnjfo.com or justifiableneed.com is another way to find us. We're on Facebook for now, for however long that lasts. We're on Twitter for however long that lasts. And Instagram also, we're trying to build up some other platforms as well. But our website is stable, so you can certainly check us out there. We have the Black